G. Owusu-Eko. On behalf of the committee, I congratulate you on your nomination by the President, the position of Minister for Communication. You are a member of this committee, so you don't have to be reminded of the rules. But you also know that what you put in will use what you get. So we have been advising us. I hope you take the advice and make your answers precise and concise and brief.
Share your position with us on spousal rights and when you will support the introduction of a bill to secure that right.
Safe it to say that I believe that spouses are equal partners in a relationship and they complement each other. It is a shame that our Constitution provides for the marital rights of spouses to be enshrined in the law, and so far we've not been able to do that. I'm a firm advocate for the legal regime being put in place to protect whatever investment we all make in each other's lives. And so, the last Parliament, the bill was introduced and it had to go back for amendments. I'm hoping that we will see it in this Parliament and we can all advocate for a legal regime which protects the rights of spouses within the marriage in the unfortunate event of the marriage breaking down to that they can at least retrieve a little bit of the investment that they made in each other's life. Nobody should be worse off because a relationship which they believe would last for life ended prematurely, probably through no fault of anyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just for the record, that bill was not returned. Very severe amendments were proposed, and there were way too many that we did not find the way onto the agenda.
Are you in court with any of the telcos? In other words, have you sued any of the telcos? Can you tell this committee what the facts are? And can you assure this committee, if it is the case that my investigation is accurate, how do you assure this committee and this nation that you're going to be the Minister of Communications, you'll be a neutral arbiter, and you will be fair to all the telcos in the center?
I was working with Zenith Telecommunications in 2009, and on 8th January 2009, I was handed a letter disengaging me from the services of the company, indicating that my public appearances in the media were becoming an embarrassment to the company. And so, since they ascribed a reason for that, I took them to the Human Rights Court that they had infringed my right of free expression and association. So it's purely a human rights matter. It has nothing to do with what they do or the professionalism or anything. For me, it's a human interest case. And but interestingly, they have been moved to settle that matter for a few months now, and I believe we're close to conclusion on that matter. So Zain is no longer working in this country. The company is dead, and they have nothing to fear from me. The actors have changed, the company has changed. The nature of the case is personal, it's not professional, and I deal with them in a manner which is in the best interest of this country.
Will you consider abandoning this court action for a rapprochement to allow you to navigate well?
Oh, I believe that may even not be necessary in view of the state that the negotiations have reached. So we've had a lot of conversations up to this point, and I'm sure, and I know that the current managers and the board members of Airtel know that they have a friend in me, and so I don't think it would even be necessary. It may be overkill to do what Honorable Minority Leader is suggesting. The negotiations are very far advanced, I can assure you of that.
How do you envisage that you can guarantee, assist in the guarantee of regular power supply to these transmitters? And how do you also plan to assist the poor, the vulnerable, who may not be able to afford digital television sets? Because that is the threat of digital migration.
I'm not sure about the switchover taking place in the next few weeks. The original timetable for migration was June 2015, was the next. The deadline I inherited was September 2017. I'm still receiving briefings on it. I'm looking at the state of deployment of the infrastructure. It may be necessary to extend the deadline. I don't know. Sitting here now, I can't tell you because we're still having discussions on that. And there may still be some issues with providing set-top boxes for the poor and marginalized who may not be in a position to afford new digital televisions. However, the original funding proposal for this whole project was the sale of 4G spectrum. It was anticipated that we'll be able to sell 2 blocks of 4G spectrum. We'll be able to sell only 1. So there is a funding gap for us to meet currently to enable us to provide the power that you so succinctly referred to power the network. It is important that we stick to the essentials first before we think about the other measures. So my priority now is looking for the financing to power the network that has been the infrastructure that has been put in place. And then subsequent to that, we can think about looking for additional funding for the set-top boxes, which will enable those who have analog TV sets watch their digital transmission. So once we solve all these problems or see our way clear in terms of timelines, then we can stick to, I hope that we'll be able to stick to the September 2017 timeline. But if need be, we may have to extend it because of the exigencies of the situation we find ourselves in.
The general public mostly cry that the telecommunication industries are actually cheating them. We realize that they open their data and then the data actually consumes their units. So would you consider education as a package to educate the general public as to what to do to reduce the consumption of their bundles, data bundles?
Thank you. You're asking me to do PR for the telecommunications companies, but let me try. I think if you have too many applications open, it will chew up your data. So it is incumbent on all of us to know how to maximize the use of the bundles that we buy. And we like talking. Talk is nice and it helps us to communicate, but it can also be expensive. That's why I think they have all these data plans which will enable you to manage how you use the credits that you put on your phone for whatever. So if my son taught me that you should configure your phone in such a way that the media isn't uploaded automatically, but then you need to prompt it to upload, so that if you don't really want it, you can delete it without it using up your data. And I think if we all learn those little tricks, our data plans will go a bit further than we want them to.
I don't know what the regulators do for us, me as a consumer, but my personal experience that I have, and I'm in 2 calls, they say it is exhausted. I go there, I can't understand how. They say, oh, maybe you have many apps open as they are suggesting. But it is the same thing on the same phone. So if it were the apps, then the other network should have also been consumed within the 2 days. That explanation is naive. That's not fact. Somebody must be standing up for the consumer against those. In anger, I removed the SIM in front of them and put it in the dustbin. But the truth of the matter is, the consumer doesn't have the information on how the charges are applied to their data. And this is where we want some assurance, some indication that the regulator will stand in for us. The public is the public refuge or protector of us, the data users.
What I can say to that is the best response that you gave to that operator was to vote with your feet, which is exactly what you did. None of them wants to lose a customer, and a good one at that. And so once they are confronted with the fact that the competition is doing so much better than they are, market forces would force them to also offer similar packages to enable them keep their subscribers happy.
Looking at all the issues globally, looking at the issues in terms of how women and men will benefit, what specific activities or any specific activities you can do under your ministry to promote the cause of women or to help women have access to quality telecommunication services or communication services? Thank you.
That's a tough one. And at the risk of being accused of bias, improved access to telecommunications makes everyone's life easier, particularly for the woman. And so things that would have put us at risk previously, you can now sit in the comfort of your home and do it if you have better data. And it helps improve relationships too. I keep using this example that I probably would have been married today if it hadn't been for Skype. Because my husband doesn't live here and I live here, but thanks to the wonders of technology, we were able to sustain a long distance relationship relatively painlessly. And there is honorable minority.
Chairman, I've been invited to ask the nominee whether technology conveys the exercise of conjugal rights.
You are before that.
So yes, technology does make life easier. But while we are using it, we should also be mindful of the dangers. And so we need to also teach about more secure ways of using the internet and protecting our children from the predators who are out there. So there's a child online policy which has just been developed. I am still studying it, and then we see how to make that more effective. There's a Girls in ICT program which is also helping a lot more women, girls, to lose their fear of technology and embrace it and use it for its more positive aspects. It also provides a lot of work opportunities as well. We can work relatively easily from the comfort of our homes. I lived in Japan many years ago, and several companies outsource their works to stay-at-home mothers. So you can stay at home and do the work and send it back to them. I'm looking towards a future where even new mothers can also stay at home, do their work online, send the results to their workplaces, and work according to their own flexible timing, not the 9 to 5, so that you can still take care of your home and keep up your own employment at the same time without losing too much, so that we can spend more time raising our children without losing the formative years to house help to raise them. It's a danger that women face particularly, and it is something that we can all work towards, using technology to make our lives easier, so that our families don't suffer in the back. So it can, in the process, it can only be good. But there are lots of opportunities, and we need to work to harness them better.
My communities are not connected. When they go and stand on a hill or some spot, and I call them back, I can't get them. They say, you have just elected a man, he's not taking our calls. I want you to do something. You mentioned Visa or something, VASAT or VSAT. Do something about it. and speed it up, because I was assured that my communities will be connected earliest or the latest by August last year. Do you know when you can speed it up to?
13. We still don't have wireless access in this country, but I can happily report that by September this year, e-Parliament should be up and running, because more than half the work has already been done. The hardware and software has been acquired. They're liaising with Parliament to work out the specifications of what, the details of what actually needs to be done, and it should be done. If we have e-health, you can sit in your village somewhere and access the best specialist attention from our hospitals without moving, and get a proper diagnosis and be told what to do without having to travel long distances. Some work is going on in that direction with KNUST and Korle Bu already. We should be able to get that also up and running. Registrar Generals has to be linked with Ghana Revenue Authority, and they also have to have the system so that you can actually register a company sitting from the comfort of your home, pay for it, fill out the forms, and do everything. Currently, my information is that you can only do searches at the Registrar Generals, and that's not the purpose for which that program was set up. So I'm still receiving briefing on many of these initiatives, but I can assure you that you have my full support in the NITA and the e-Governance Secretariat would have my full support in pushing through whatever needs to be done to make sure that the amount of money the World Bank is spending on this project doesn't become money down the drain. Because if we can get these systems up and running, it would help all of us. We still don't have wireless access in this country, but I can happily report that by September this year, e-Parliament should be up and running, because more than half the work has already been done. The hardware and software has been acquired. They're liaising with Parliament to work out the specifications of what, the details of what actually needs to be done, and it should be done. If we have e-health, you can sit in your village somewhere and access the best specialist attention from our hospitals without moving, and get a proper diagnosis and be told what to do without having to travel long distances. Some work is going on in that direction with KNUST and Korle Bu already. We should be able to get that also up and running. Registrar Generals has to be linked with Ghana Revenue Authority, and they also have to have the system so that you can actually register a company sitting from the comfort of your home, pay for it, fill out the forms, and do everything. Currently, my information is that you can only do searches at the Registrar Generals, and that's not the purpose for which that program was set up. So I'm still receiving briefing on many of these initiatives, but I can assure you that you have my full support in the NITA and the e-Governance Secretariat would have my full support in pushing through whatever needs to be done to make sure that the amount of money the World Bank is spending on this project doesn't become money down the drain. Because if we can get these systems up and running, it would help all of us.
There's an important issue about radio licensing. And there is a new trend in our country where a particular radio station will have several licenses across the country and building one big media conglomerate, sometimes with a reach bigger than even the national radio stations. For instance, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation or any of the affiliate stations. Are we going to continue with this culture? What are you going to do to address this very serious problem? I come from a very poor community. Laura a very poor community. If you look at the poverty index, we are like 73% of our population is very poor. And many of the young people do not have access to internet services. Facebook, Google, and all these new applications are completely new things to young people in those areas. I want to get some assurance from you that rural Ghana will benefit from internet penetration and possible free Wi-Fi services in these underserved communities. What assurances or what program, what plans does your ministry have for communities, poor communities in Ghana, particularly communities in northern Ghana?
Thank you. No part of our country ought to be left behind in our quest to develop this country. And so I am glad that at least we have the beginnings of a fiber network around the country, which would make it possible to link up all the communities to a fiber ring and provide internet access to every community, working in tandem with the operators. Once the infrastructure is there, the road is there, then we can work to getting the little vehicles to run on the roads. So when we finish building up the Western Corridor link, then we would have a total fiber ring around the country. When we actualize the Eastern Corridor fiber and do the last mile connectivity, working with industry, we can be able to bring access to the internet as close to the doorstep of people as possible. I do know that we are building community information centers too around the country. I believe 20 have been built so far. Many of them have internet access. And GIFAC is also working to even train those who would use and access those facilities. So that can be a focal point of demystifying the use of the internet to every part of this country. They are in the districts and in the regions, not just in the district and in the capitals and the big cities. So when we can put up a bit more of these, we can be able to bring access to the internet to all these people. I'm even thinking of using the infrastructure of Ghana Post, which is everywhere in this country, and converting some of them into wireless, building wireless hotspots in some of these post offices around the country, which will make it possible for many of our rural folk to even access the internet through that and use that in their work. You can sell your fish if you're a fishmonger, or your yam if you produce yam, through the internet. If we promote e-commerce as well, if we have more secure payment platforms in place electronically, we can generate a whole new revolution, more or less, in the entire country using technology. So it is not too far-fetched. We have the beginnings, like I said, in place. It's up to us to link it together. And thankfully, at least the team in place now, and I'm sure with all the goodwill around this table and with the members of parliament also keen to promote this, we can bring the 21st century to the doorsteps of our people and leapfrog into the technological age without wasting too much time. By the end of next year, the year after that, we should be able to see something concrete happening on the ground. And like I keep saying, it is doable. It is not rocket science.
House that she is transiting from an acidic tongue to a very ministerial, diplomatic hustler. And for that matter, if there were any sins her tongue committed on her behalf, knowingly or unknowingly, she regrets them.
Honorable Nominee, wait. Can you rephrase acidic tongue and use a more acceptable language? Acidic tongue is like leading somebody into a temptation that I had acidic tongue. I'd rather you use a different.
Find a substitute for me. Okay. Acidic withdrawn. But There are instances you were bluntly vilifying of persons you engage in debate with, standing strong by your convictions. Are we assured of the emergence of a new hustler, a diplomatic hustler who guided by the tongue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that hustler is very much in evidence and has been for a while. At least I have had comments in that direction for the past couple of years. And I think that depending on where you find yourself, you should be able to also adapt to changing circumstances. An illustration I keep using is that you can't drive in fifth gear all the time. You really do need to crank up and then crank down depending on the circumstances. But I must thank Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center for also opening my eyes to some of the dangers we unwittingly lead ourselves into with our actions and utterances. And it's helped me to step back and tone down a bit and pause a bit more before jumping into the fray. And Mr. Chairman, you have to commend me on that. I think you are seeing the new improved ESLA, and there will be a lot more of that in evidence. Thank you.
Chairman, I was wondering whether it was Honorable Osala I was hearing. Well, I pray that the born again is not because she's at the vetting. Our struggle to e-Parliament and the ups and downs. Yes, we now have a better gadgets in the chamber, but we are still limited in terms of getting the information earlier, able to read the screen, so we are virtually back to paper again. Having sat in the chamber for the past 4 years, what do you think your ministry, if given the nod, you will do to help bridge a gap with this difficulty Parliament has currently with the use of electronic gadgets in our operation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the first statements I made was on a paperless Parliament. And so I'm happy that we've got the little gadgets that we can read our order paper and votes and proceedings on. But we can take it one step further. It will facilitate our work if we had easy access to the internet to be able to do basic research, so that even sitting in the chamber, if we had Wi-Fi access, wireless access to the internet, we could work better. And NITA is just across the street. I have tasked them, and I've already started giving them grief on that as well. But I'm hoping that by the end of this year, they tell me that there's a fiber ring around Parliament. We're not deriving much benefit from it, Parliament. Let's give effect to that, do the last mile solution. They say Parliament needs to bring them their specifications or whatever. But whatever needs to be done to make sure that we are properly hooked onto the internet and can do our work better and reduce the amount of paper that we use in our work, I am committed to doing that. And I'm sure that you have a keen advocate in me when it comes to that. If it works well, I benefit. And so it's in my interest make sure that e-Parliament really works. It will help in the document management system in this House. The Speaker will be able to track where every letter is. So will the leadership be. And we can also follow up on maybe committee allowances and anything else which may be held up. Or at the click of a button. I don't know if it can be provisioned in that manner, but let's think through what you put in is what you get. So how we configure the systems that we put out based on our needs is what will be done. But I'm committed to getting that done as quickly as possible.
Well, because you mentioned NITA, because I was the majority whip some months ago, they insisted we have to pay. Even when we made the payment, they insist we have to have a contract, knowing that we are neighbors, like you rightly said. And even though we paid over 4 or 5 months now, we still don't have internet because they are insisting that there should be proper contracting. As a minister who is also a member of Parliament, are you going to get NITA to be a little charitable to Parliament, knowing the challenges that we have here?
I'm trying to check to see if you've paid, because I have a list of those who owe NITA. Parliament House. Parliament House is actually paid, yes.
Are you a debt collector?
No. I am not a debt collector. But a lot of the agencies who use the services of NITA don't think they have to pay for it. They pay quite happily for electricity, for water, for telephone usage, but they don't think they need to pay for internet usage. Government has spent over $400 million putting in very expensive infrastructure to enable us work better, work more efficiently. NITA is having difficulty collecting payments from ministries, departments, and agencies for the use of those services. GIFMIX needs to run on the NITA infrastructure. So it is incumbent on all of us to pay for the services that we need so that NITA can deliver more efficient services to all of us. So it's a catch-22 situation. But I'm committed to make sure that once the payments come, and as I've seen, Parliament has paid, and so NITA has to deliver the services to Parliament. I give you the assurance that I'll make sure that they do.
Or the Ministry of Communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, the cutoff date is 2020. It's a period from 2015 to 2020, and we opted to do it in 2016, but were unable to meet it, and then moved it to 2017. I am hoping that we'll be able to meet this 2017 deadline. We will be totally cut off if by 2020 we haven't switched from analog to digital, but we hope to do so well before that time. It is in our interest to make sure that the dividends that attach to going digital accrue to our people. Clearer sound quality, picture quality, and you can even yield more spectrum and do even more with the available spectrum. But I'm going to be working very closely with all the various operators in this industry to ensure that we are well within the period for a migration and do not suffer any, I don't know whether to call it a dundum or dumso. Digital a dundum.
Chairman, I refuse to.
You're out of order.
I refuse to respond to the nominee, but to bring her back to the exciting digital world. Will you assure this committee that you will dedicate benefits of the digital dividend for rural telephony to cover the unserved and underserved, as you stated?
Mr. Chairman, we have to. And that will be some kind of affirmative action to make sure that the our rural populace also benefits from the digital dividend. So I will receive advice on how to do that, but it is something that we will seriously consider. Thank you.
Chairman, just to illustrate, for instance, you are driving from Togo to Yendi, then in between is you have no access to telephone or IT as an emergency response initiative. You want to be able to reach a family member if you are in difficulty. Or from, if Chairman gave me a community around Bekwai where he has difficulty accessing telephone and internet, and Troku to Bekwai, and then from Joapong coming towards Akusumbo, what will you do for Seamless, that Volu? You see, you didn't give me a play before you brought that in. So, honorable nominee, what will you do to ensure continuous access to telephone as an emergency response instrument?
It is something that we need to do, and along the highways, we really do need to minimize the black holes and black spots along it where you can't get even connectivity. So I'd work with GIFEC, I'd work with the operators, and I'll work with NITA to see how together we can we can improve communication along our transport routes in the event of emergencies, you really do need to be able to reach help as quickly as possible. So this situation where you would have to go through all kinds of contortions before you get service is not something that we need to encourage. So we'll do whatever we can to minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you, Chairman. The country's universities, whether University of Ghana, University of Cape Coast, Kwame Nkrumah University, or UDS, or UMAT in Takwa, there's a generation of young people, you want them to have the opportunity and grasp of IT. What will you do to improve internet availability within the country's universities? What plans do you have?
I think work is even, thank you, Mr. Chairman, work is even underway to make all our universities at least Wi-Fi zones so that all our students would have access to free Wi-Fi on the campuses. And GIFEC can do that with the visa that they already have, and they all have wireless fiber access to the various campuses. So it is something that we just need to find out who's going to pay the cost of providing those services, and government is committed to doing that.